You know, Pakistan's government is celebrating a record-breaking tax collection. But what if I told you that this incredible number is actually hiding a massive trillion rupee problem, a problem that really burdens the poor and, well, benefits the wealthy? Today, we are going deep into Pakistan's tax system to uncover a story of some really profound structural flaws. So, on the surface, everything looks great. For the very first time, Pakistan's Federal Board of Revenue, we'll call it the FBR, collected over 9 trillion rupees. That's a huge, nearly 30% jump from the year before. But a number like that, as impressive as it sounds, is hiding a much, much more complicated reality. And this quote right here gets to the absolute heart of the issue. You see, experts are warning that these record numbers are just a mask for a system that is fundamentally broken. It's a system that relies on mechanisms that put a much heavier burden on lower-income families, making it, as they say, demonstrably regressive. And what does that mean? It means the poor are effectively paying a larger percentage of their income in taxes than the rich. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the system's dual structure. Then, we'll examine the federal and provincial tax machines separately. From there, we're going to uncover the biggest problem of all, what's called the erosion of the tax base, and explore how they're trying to modernize things before we land on a clear set of recommendations for reform. To really get a handle on Pakistan's tax system, you first have to understand this concept of fiscal federalism. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's a core constitutional idea really solidified by the 18th Amendment. All it means is that the power to tax is split between two levels, the central federal government and the individual provinces. This dual structure is the key to, well, everything that follows. And this division of power is actually pretty clear-cut. On one side, you have the federal domain, which is managed by the FBR. They handle the big stuff, taxes on most income, on goods, and on imports. On the other side, you have the provincial domain, and they're responsible for taxes on services, agricultural income, property, and vehicles. Just keep this split in mind, because it's absolutely crucial for understanding where the whole system starts to break down. Okay, so let's zoom in on that federal system first and break down the 4 core taxes that the FBR is responsible for collecting. First up, we've got the big one, income tax. This is the most significant direct tax. Now, under the law, a person is defined really broadly. It can be an individual, like you or me, or it can be a company. Their taxable income is then carefully sorted into one of 5 categories, or heads: salary, property, business, capital gains, or other sources. Now, in theory, this system is progressive, and that's a good thing. It just means that the more you earn, the higher your tax rate. As you can see, it starts at just 2.5% for lower earners, and it climbs all the way up to a top rate of 35% for the highest income bracket. The design, at least on paper, is meant to be fair. Next is the sales tax on goods. This is what's known as a value-added tax, or VAT. The standard rate was recently bumped up to 18%, and there's an even higher 25% rate on certain luxury items. The whole idea here is that the tax is applied at every single step of a product's journey, from production to you, the consumer. But, and this is important, it's designed to avoid taxing the same value twice. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so picture a product moving from a factory to a store. The manufacturer makes it, sells it, and adds the tax. The wholesaler who buys it pays that tax, but then gets to claim it back as a credit when they sell to the retailer. They only charge tax on the new value they've added. The same exact thing happens with the retailer. The crucial point is that the system ensures that tax is only paid on the value added at each specific stage. It prevents this messy cascade of tax on tax on tax. The other 2 federal taxes are a bit more straightforward. You've got the Federal Excise Duty, or FED, which is basically a sin tax. It targets specific things like cigarettes and sugary drinks, and wow, did it see huge growth last year? Over 56%. Then there are customs duties, which are just taxes on imported goods. They serve a dual purpose, bringing in money for the government and helping to protect local industries. All right, so that's the federal side. Now let's switch gears and talk about the provinces, because this is where we find some of the most progressive and fair tax bases, and unfortunately, also where we find the most tragic failures of collection. Just look at this chart from Punjab province. It tells an incredible story. The province collected almost 11 billion rupees from taxing motor vehicles. That's a pretty simple tax to collect. But it collected a tiny 1.3 billion from the agricultural income tax. And this is in a province where agriculture is a cornerstone of the economy. This isn't just a small gap, it is a profound policy failure. And the problem is even worse when you look at the urban immovable property tax. High-value real estate in big cities should be an absolute gold mine for provincial governments. It's a stable, visible asset, and taxing it is one of the fairest things you can do. But because of political hesitation and weak administration, the collections are just shockingly low. And here's the real kicker. This failure to tax wealth at the local level has a direct consequence. It forces the entire country to rely more and more on those less fair, regressive federal taxes. And that failure at the provincial level puts immense pressure back on the federal system, exposing its own deep structural flaws. This brings us right to the heart of the problem, a tax base that is being systematically eaten away from the inside. To understand this, we need to know a key term: tax expenditures. Now, this isn't money the government is spending. It's money the government chooses not to collect. It's revenue that's lost or foregone, all because of special exemptions, loopholes, and concessions that are given out to certain sectors or industries. So, how much are we talking about here? The scale is just colossal. In a single year, the government lost an estimated 1.2 trillion rupees from sales tax exemptions alone. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's more than the entire federal budget for all public sector development projects in the same year. It's a staggering amount of lost revenue. This chart shows you exactly where those losses are coming from. As you can see, sales tax exemptions are the single biggest culprit, making up more than half of all these tax expenditures. And this is so damaging because remember that clean VAT chain we talked about? Well, every single exemption punches a hole right through it, creating distortions and forcing the government to keep the standard tax rate high on everyone else just to compensate. So the situation looks pretty bleak. How is the FBR trying to fix this? Well, the answer lies in completely modernizing its administration, moving away from old, outdated methods toward a much more intelligent, data-driven approach. The shift is from traditional, reactive auditing, which is like a detective showing up after the fact, to a proactive approach called compliance risk management, or CRM. So instead of just checking the books later, CRM uses data analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to analyze behavior and spot high-risk areas before they become huge problems. The goal is to encourage people to comply voluntarily. Okay, so finally, let's look at the path forward. Based on all of this analysis, experts have laid out a really clear 4-point plan to fix these structural flaws and build a tax system that's more sustainable and, frankly, more equitable. The recommendations are pretty straightforward. First, get rid of the exemptions that are gutting the sales tax system. Second, empower the provinces to actually collect the property and agricultural taxes they're supposed to. Third, create a national body to get the federal and provincial systems to actually work together, not against each other. And fourth, double down on technology like CRM to make the whole system smarter and more efficient. And that leaves us with this final and, I think, critical question. The analysis shows that the policy solutions are pretty well understood. The roadmap is clear. The real challenge, it seems, isn't about knowing what to do, but about finding the political will to actually get it done.